going to be back in the room together this month. Just was not quite in the cards. So hopefully in August we can get back in the room and then don't see any major hiccups going into the fall. Obviously, that's a little bit outside of our control. So we'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Councilwoman Howe is not present via Zoom, and Councilman Wilder is not present, but we are able to move forward. Start. We have a question? I'm sorry. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. As Dale said, we'll pretend that we are standing. Use whatever flag that you have. And then we'll move forward. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a few new people today, so that we haven't had in some of the meetings. Welcome. Hopefully we are absent some of the technical difficulties we had before, which included me not remembering the Pledge of Allegiance 2 months ago and drawing a complete blank. Didn't happen again, then I printed it out. It's strange to say it without having others kind of say it with you. First order of business is to postpone the regular business meeting, move into a public hearing on ordinance 244 related to community solar energy generating systems. We have a motion to move into the public hearing. Any of the council people?
I will make a motion that we close the regular meeting and go into a private meeting in regards to ordinance 244.
I'll second it.
Public hearing. Motion second. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Also, thank you. Also, for those of you that are new, it's a little bit different. We are raising our hands, so we have a little bit more as people kind of stay on mute throughout the meeting. That way we have a record of who is voting for what. Kelly or Steve, do we receive any public comments related to ordinance 244?
I did not receive public comments, except that I do know Abe Bennett said that he would like to speak during this time.
Is Mr. Bennett present? Oh, he is. Oh, perfect.
Yes, hi.
Sorry, I did see you up there.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Bennett is present, and the same with me. I did not hear any public comment for tonight's meeting.
Why don't we do this? Mr. Bennett, if you'd like to speak now, and that way we can keep the public hearing open for a few minutes. Kelly, if you're running point today, please make sure that we don't move on if something were to come in during the next couple of minutes while we have the public hearing open. So, Mr. Bennett, the floor is yours.
Yes, I spoke a few months ago before COVID all started and in support of this ordinance. And I had a few comments, and I think it's gone back to planning. And now the way it's written, I just wanted to express that we're in complete support of the way it's written and think it's an ordinance that we can use to move forward with. So thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I appreciate the comments. Before we move to close the public hearing, anybody else like to speak on 244 solar energy generating systems? Or Kelly, did anything come in by chance in the last few minutes? You're on mute now too, but I did see you shake your head. Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing and move forward the regular business meeting?
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing and move back into our regular meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Opposed. Okay, first order of regular business, approval of June 9th minutes. Kelly did send these out electronically, so you should have those. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion. We approve the June 2020 minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. We do have the June 2020 check register. We do not have the treasurer's report yet. So do we have a motion to receive the check register at this point for June 2020?
I'll make a motion that we receive the June 2020 check register.
I'll second it.
that.
Sorry.
Councilman Michelli, the second. Any other additions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Mayor's report. Just a couple of general reminders here. Again, yard waste, I know we do remind people of this. It is every Friday through November. Please be mindful of no plastic bags. That continues to be somewhat of a problem. You get things in armful loads or something that's easy for the guys to pick up. Census has been around for a little bit now. There is a push to get these things completed. We've not completed the census. We believe there's still an opportunity to do that either in a letter or online. Bulk trash is tomorrow. This was postponed from the regular time due to COVID, but it is tomorrow. If you do have something and you have not called Hughes, please try to do so first thing in the morning so that they can make sure that they get your bulk trash. Water bills are due. So water bills for Q2 are out. They are due July 30th, not July 31st, as a reminder. We are not charging penalties at this time. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong. We are also, the town is not charging we're not passing through. The town is eating any electronic payment fees so that folks are able to avoid coming to the office if they choose to pay online. National Night Out, which typically takes place in August and is well underway for planning at this point in the year, is unfortunately canceled due to the pandemic. Congratulations to Mayor Perry Jones of Union Bridge. He's elected president of Maryland Municipal League. It's the first Carroll County elected official to be elected as president of MML in about 20 years, I believe. We did recently have the MML conference remotely, which was a unique experience, and a couple of us were able to, rather than having to travel to it, we may be able to join where we wouldn't otherwise have been able to join. And there was some good content on there, and it was actually recorded too. So those of us that had signed up can still go and get to some of the content that we weren't able to get to live. Also, congratulations to former mayor of New Windsor, Jay Gullo. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award from MML. He serves as the parliamentarian. He's also a past president. That is all I have as far as the mayor's report, and I'll turn it over to town administrator.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. We'll go ahead and start with the June 2020 administrative report. We had a very busy month this past month. Under the opioid litigation, there has been slight movement on that. We have been contacted by the attorneys on that. The Lippy property annexation and the community solar energy generating system, of course, that's both agenda items. The small cell tower ordinance, we have nothing at this time. The Patriots Overlook annexation, there will be discussion at a planning and workshop meeting, and that date is to be determined. One action item that I have tonight is the Freedom Wireless lease renewal. I sent that out to you this afternoon for your review. Our staff did meet with the folks from Freedom Wireless, and we agreed on that price, $800 a month, which is an increase, and that will be for 3 years. So that is an action item. The Whispering Valley Stormwater Management Facility retrofit project, that's about 75% complete. That is moving right along. The athletic field lighting project, the new poles and lights have been installed. The old poles and lights have been removed, and we're waiting on BGE to switch over the power. I'd like to thank Kelly Baldwin for all the time she's put in that through the POS funding and so on and so forth. But I really do feel that once this project's complete, this was a very good project. It was a long-term project, and I think we have a lot to be proud of. Under code enforcement, you received a monthly code enforcement update. Under miscellaneous items, the HVAC system and the roof sealing project, both at the Historical Center, have been completed. And I want to thank Randy Bear, our maintenance facilities manager, for spearheading that project. The ADA sidewalk project from the parking area to Pavilion 1 and 2 is complete. And I want to thank our park supervisor, Dave Brown, for taking on this project. The water bills were mailed out July 1st as per the extension of the governor's emergency orders. No late fees or water service shutoffs can be applied until August 1st. At that time, the governor can extend or he can cancel. So we'll keep an eye on that. Phase 1 of making our public restrooms at Christmas Park has been completed. Hopefully we can possibly get some CARES funding to continue that on some other areas of town facilities. I want to bring this to your attention. I have not officially been told anything yet, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be an increase to the tipping fees and possible recycling tipping fees. As I said, we haven't been notified about this, but I heard the possibility that these increases would start sometime around January 1 of 2021. I did also attend the MML virtual seminars, and I want to take my hat off to the MML staff. That was very well put together in a short amount of time. And I'd also like to congratulate Mayor Jones. Mayor Jones and I go back a long ways through the fire service, but then also he also serves with me on the Water Resources Coordination Council. So my hat's off to Mayor Jones for taking over as president for MML. As the mayor also said, due to the current situation, National Night Out will be canceled for this year. One thing that I put on my report, we do have a maintenance crew member position 2, which is currently being advertised, and applications for this position are due back July 24th. We did advertise a position internally as per our personnel policy for 7 calendar days. So right now it's out on the street till Friday the 24th. Under COVID-19 updates, staff continues to work on the CARES funding request. Just to bring you up to speed, some of the requests we put in for is additional personal protective equipment, additional laptops and tablets for working remotely. We put in for an alternative radio system if the cell phone system would go down. So those are some of the things we asked for that we hopefully will receive funding for, and we're doing some work on that, getting some bids back. Town Hall is currently open by appointment only, and our meeting room has been arranged to meet the requirements for social distancing for future meetings. So possibly we may be able to hold if the chairperson sees fit, the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting here, and possibly the August town meeting. So that's all I have in my report. Again, the only action item I have for the council tonight is the Freedom Wireless lease renewal. Any questions for me?
All right, thanks, Steve. Any questions before we move on to the action item for the town administrator? Steve, did you have any update or an estimate from BG&E on when they plan to switch over that power?
Do not. I talked to the contractor through email last week, and I believe we are basically at the mercy of BG&E whenever they can get in to make that switch over. Yes.
Yeah, it's not really a real, emergency. Obviously, with everything going on at this point, it would be nice to see, be able to give it a test run at some point.
Yes.
We can handle some of the logistics of it offline, but obviously we'll probably get with the rec council and get them trained up on how to use it and where everything is.
Yes, there will be a training period that's in the contract that they will show, work with the people that will be using the facility. Yes.
Very good. Anything else for the town administrator? Hearing none. He did send out the negotiated lease renewal, Freedom Wireless lease renewal of $800 a month. You guys were able to take a look at that. Do we have any questions or comments on that before we move forward? Hearing none, do we have a motion to move forward with the Freedom Wireless lease renewal, $800 a month?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the Freedom Wireless $800 a month contract.
And I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Any other concerns? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. So, Steve, we can move forward with that. I'll stop in the office tomorrow if we don't need to sign anything. I'd already talked to, I didn't catch it today, but I talked to Kelly a little bit earlier. All right. Public Works report. Rodney.
Okay.
You're on mute. There you go.
Everybody hear me okay? Okay, good evening, Mayor and Town Council. Okay, please pull out your monthly water and wastewater data report for June 2020. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Also in Public Works, Equine Meadows preliminary plans. Our agency reviewed Equine Meadows plans and responded with comments and recommendations on June 18th, 2020. And the comments were to the engineering firm that was Development Design Consultants. We had a surprise MOSHA inspection at our maintenance shop and Christmas Tree Park bathroom building. Nothing real major. We're working through some minor corrections, a punch list that MOSHA created for us. This tentatively should be completed by August 2020. And the surprise inspection was in the spring of 2020. For water, our Del well generator and automatic transfer switch replacement, we are finalizing our plan and our finalizing costs and our plan for equipment and installation. The wastewater treatment plant ENR upgrade and optional expansion, we are still working with our engineer through phase 1, the testing and evaluation phase, and that continues until November 2020. Additionally, our engineering firm scheduled a plant condition assessment meeting that was held on June 4th, 2020 on site with town staff. And that was in a sense to evaluate our current equipment condition. The sewer line manhole closed circuit TV inspections and investigation phase of that project that was approved a couple months ago. That was started and completed actually the last week in June. We expect a comprehensive report within 45 days. And that was an outside contractor, USG, out of Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. The FY21 street and town facility asphalt rehab projects, we advertised for bids June 12, 2020 on this. We had a pre-bid meeting with the contractors last week with a really good turnout. We have a lot of interest in this. Bids are due Friday, July 31st, 2020. Stormwater management, our FY21 stormwater inlet refurbishing projects for FY21, again, 21, that totaling 16 stormwater inlet and apron repairs off in the Augusta Road area and Westminster Street area. We advertised for proposals June 18th, 2020. We had 3 companies that had interest. Proposals were due last week, and this is an action item coming up shortly. Any questions on the DPW report before I move on to the action item?
Sounds like you're good to move forward.
Excuse me?
So it sounds like you're good to move forward if nobody has any questions.
Okay, we're good. Okay. So action item, again, the town of Manchester stormwater inlet refurbishing projects. We had 3 companies interested, 2 opted out. So we received 1 bid from Stanball's Construction, and that was $44,622.00. I'm requesting the town council's approval to award this project to Stanball's Construction in this amount. And this is budgeted for FY21, and it is within budget.
All right. With it being within budget, best now that we had 2 organizations refuse to bid, within your judgment, is the $44,000 figure fair and close to market value for the work that they're going to do?
Yes, this is in line with the work that we did last year, and Stanballs did the work for us last year, and they did excellent work.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Rodney on the action item? Concerns? We have a motion to move forward. accepting the bid from Stanbaugh Construction.
I'll make a motion that we accept the Stanbaugh bid of $44,622 for the stormwater refurbishment program or plan.
I'll second that motion.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. All right. Do you have any other action items, Rodney?
That's all. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to the police report. Unfortunately, Chief Hess was not able to make it tonight. He did send a report into me. I'll read/summarize where we are at that. July 2020 police report calls for service remained high. The month of June 2020 at 143 calls for service, 22 outside of town. Investigated minor thefts, domestics, minor assaults. Suspects have been identified or criminally charged in all cases. For the most part, calls continue to be minor in nature, nothing significant. We issued 40 warnings and citations for traffic enforcement. Again, not close to where we were at the high, but that is picking back up as complaints have come in. Seems like the city streets, sure this is everywhere, seeing more speeding and stop sign running as police have not been as active in traffic enforcement due to the virus. Overdose cases in the nation continue to spike. The exact numbers even for the county not available at this time. However, Manchester thus continues to hold at 0 for the year. So knock on wood there. We continue to get many thank you cards and appreciation letters from members of the community. Special thanks goes out to Ralph, our Special Olympics athlete, for the photo of the Flame of Hope, our friends at BB&T Bank, the Evans family, Jana, who is a resident of Manchester, the Hendricks family, Eichelberg family of Manchester. Kind words and show of support is very much appreciated by the police department. No other information to report. So thank you to the community members that are recognizing our guys, both the police department and the rest of our employees in town office who've just been exemplary during the last couple of months. It is nice to not always just be criticized, but also hear the nice things. Any questions on the police report? I don't know if I'll be able to answer them beyond what Chief Hess had sent in, but I did talk with them, so I may be able to answer it. Hearing none, we will move on. Next order of business, discussion of ordinance 244 related to community solar energy generating systems. As a reminder, this was the topic of our public hearing at the beginning. Kelly, just to double check, anybody that's watching online, have we received anything else that's come in related to this so we can put on the record?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Bennett and Mr. Lamont, I believe, unless there's somebody else here is here to discuss this. Mr. Bennett did go on the record, and I believe, I don't want to speak for you, but said that you worked with planning and zoning over the last couple of months, and you were in favor / you found the edits acceptable that are currently in the ordinance.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak or have any comments? I know we don't always have Mr. Alex Perricone, chairperson of planning and zoning, with us. Alex, is there anything that you wanted to weigh in on this, having been a part of those discussions?
Good evening, all. No, I think the ordinance speaks for itself. I'd like to thank the town staff for assisting us doing some research and help getting this accomplishment. Special acknowledgement to Commissioner Robert Graham for his fine work in helping to develop this and bringing us up to speed. So we are pleased with the ordinance and are proud to submit it for the council's approval.
Okay, and just for the record, planning and zoning did work. This was up for a vote a couple of months ago. Mr. Bennett came in, really made some solid points, and we pushed this back to planning and zoning, asked him to work with that group. That took place. We did get a favorable recommendation from planning and zoning, and this is up for, this was introduced last month, public hearing tonight. It's up for a vote tonight. As such, any of the council people have any comments, questions, or concerns on the ordinance as it stands? If there are none, do we have a motion to move forward and approve ordinance 244 relating to community solar energy generating systems?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 244, community solar energy generating system.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. All right, well, we're good to go there. Next order of business, Lippy annexation number 39-20, approval of annexation plan for agency comment and setting of public hearing. I think before we get too far into this, I wanted to see if we could turn things over for just a moment to Mr. Tom McCarron. This has been with planning and zoning. It's now coming back to council. So if you can remind us and advise us on the where we are in the process, the steps, and what needs to be done tonight. And I believe there are some comments that are coming from the development group, the petitioners, and kind of how that plays in and what should be discussed at this point.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. As the mayor indicated, the annexation resolution went to the Planning Commission, or went back to the Planning Commission in this case, for a review and ultimately the Planning Commission's recommendation. The Planning Commission came back with an unfavorable recommendation, but also indicated that if the town council, mayor and town council were inclined to approve the annexation, it should be subject to certain conditions. Those conditions were memorialized in a memo that I believe are in the packet, is in the packet tonight, signed by Chairman Paracone, and also contained within a draft annexation plan. According to the state statute, what's supposed to happen now is an approval of the draft annexation plan. Of course, there are representatives of the developer here who certainly can weigh in on that, and I think have actually in writing. In consideration of their recommendations and the Planning Commission's recommendation, what is slated for tonight is an approval of the annexation plan. The annexation plan does not approve the annexation. It's merely the document that goes to the state and county planning departments for review and agency comment. Also, what should occur tonight is the setting of a public hearing. I've suggested to town staff and suggest to the mayor and council that the hearing be set out somewhere around 70, 80 days roughly. Although the state statute says that planning departments who are given the right to review the annexation plan are to report back in 30 days. And although the state Department of Planning, in my experience, usually does, I believe that a provision of our town-county agreement gives the county an additional 30 days, so a total of 60 days for the county to review and make comment. And that's why I suggest that the hearing be set somewhere around 70, 80 days. The idea being that the town would get back the agency comments before the hearing. At the hearing, of course, those comments are typically made in writing, but were one of the planning department representatives to show up, the state statute says that that representative would be given the first crack at making public comment at the public hearing. So anyway, that's where we are in this stage. After the public hearing, of course, you would schedule a meeting at which this would be on the agenda for a vote of approval or not, as the case may be.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McCarron. I apologize. I might cut out a little bit here, so if my internet gets bad and goes down, please carry on without me, and I'll figure out a way back in. But it seems to be operating well now. I did have one question from a procedural standpoint. I see we have an annexation plan. What we need to set tonight is approving the annexation plan and scheduling the public hearing. I agree with your recommendation to push it out beyond the 60 days that we would need to to ensure that we got all the comments back in. I think that would put us in the October meeting for the public hearing, if I'm not mistaken. Where I want to make sure that we're crystal clear is we had set an annexation plan. The Lippy group came back with some recommended changes to that plan. Were those recommended changes subsequent to the last planning and zoning meeting, or were those recommended changes something that were discussed in planning and zoning? And does planning and zoning have a recommendation on those? And or like how do we ferret through that list and determine how, you know, okay, this is reasonable and maybe this isn't. I'm not saying something is or isn't, but how do we incorporate the Lippy group's comments and recommendations to that in order to move forward with what our plan is going to be from this point?
So the timing or sequence of that was that these recommendations came after and in response to, I would assume, the Planning Commission's recommendations, and then the draft annexation plan, which incorporated those recommendations, which was published or given out to everyone, including the developer representatives, before tonight's meeting. In terms of how to do it, you know, I think it certainly is the mayor's pleasure in terms of how to go about that. But you know, typically, in my experience, you know, you go section by section. I mean, obviously, the different types of infrastructure give sort of the organization to the plan, water, sewer, roads, etc. And if I remember correctly, having reviewed the recommendations from the developer, I think they sort of go right down the list as the annexation plan is organized. And then certainly the Town Council could discuss and ultimately vote, you know, or give some sort of consensus as to what the annexation plan should say as to each section, and then ultimately at the end vote to approve, you know, the draft with whatever amendments the mayor and Town Council would accept.
Okay, that was my understanding as well. I just wanted to get that stated for the record. I think what would make the most sense, does the Lippy group have somebody that's, whether it's Mr. Hackett or Mr. Hill? I don't know who kind of maybe would make sense to present or answer questions, or maybe what we could do is start with your proposed modifications, and then anybody from our group or side, where, you know, whether it's Alex who's spent a lot of time on this, and town administrator certainly has, and the council people certainly can speak up, is maybe have you guys present why you feel like those paragraphs should be added or modified, and we then can look at the plan as it exists, and then maybe piecemeal this thing together with a consensus, and then vote on it as a package as amended at the end. Is that something from the group? We don't need to take a vote on this, but does that sound like a reasonable course of action to kind of work through this in a semi-organized manner?
Yeah, this is Bradford Webb. Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, so I have your, I got a couple screens here going, so I'm paying attention. I have read through this stuff, but I would like to hear you guys speak and then allow others to ask questions and weigh in. Do you want to maybe start from the top? We'll start with property location and why you feel that that this information should be added, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. The annexation plan is drafted really doesn't make it totally clear what the petitioner will ultimately be presenting here. It actually only makes mention of one other parcel, when in fact there are 3 parcels that are going to be consolidated and presented as an amended plat to the Old Town property. If you will, if you're looking at your screen, imagine the Old Town is in your lower right-hand corner, is that property there. In your upper right-hand corner is another part of the Lippy, what used to be the Lippy farm, that's already incorporated into Manchester. So you have 2 pieces in opposite corners that are in Manchester right now. The Old Town piece is platted with 40 lots. Practically speaking, you'll actually get about 19 lots if they're compelled down the road to separately submit a site plan for just the Old Town property. The incorporated Lippy property in the upper left-hand corner would accommodate 13 lots and would be presented as a separate development and a separate site plan into Manchester. There's 13 lots. In the middle is the 25 acres we're talking about here. And that's why it's always made sense to combine these three properties together into a single 40-unit development. It makes no sense to do Old Town and the incorporated Lippy property into the town and then go to the county and get the 7 or 8 lots they'll be able to get for the development of the 25 acres. So, and the annexation plan tends to make it feel like the annexation is creating 40 new lots. So we think these paragraphs go a long way to make it clearer that there's already 32 lots in the town between Old Town and the incorporated Lippy property. This annexation will only create an additional 8 lots. The concept of creating all three, to bring this to the town, consolidating all 3 parcels, isn't new. It was first brought to the Planning Commission a couple of times in 2016, and we reviewed those minutes. And you can review them as well. This concept was looked favorably by the commission at that time, and they encouraged the petitioner to continue with it. But it was noted then that the Lippy property was not yet on the town's master plan as part of a growth area. And that had to happen first before a petition for annexation could be brought. And so they said, go make that happen. And that did happen. And so now they're here to annex the 25 acres so they can bring a single consolidated development to the town as opposed to going to the town and into the county. So those are my comments on the first section on property location.
Okay, Alex, any comments from your side? You guys haven't spent more time on this. I'm fairly familiar with the overall general picture of it, as probably members of the council are. Any comments from your side, from planning and zoning, where this would have come up and discussed, and why or why not it may make sense to move forward with that additional language? My second question, I'll let you go first.
So after reviewing the proposed language just brought to us today, I can't speak for the rest of the commission and their opinion. However, so looking back on some correspondence, the Old Town development, while Mr. Webb is correct, it was brought to the commission a while ago. It's recently brought into the growth area. However, under modern zoning, they obviously probably would not get the entire 40 lots. And then therefore, anything that is not zoned in or annexed into the town certainly would fall under the county's purview and have to fall under the well and septic, which is probably pretty much a guess based on what they would find, what would perk, what would, where kind of wells they would get that were acceptable to the county. So the entire, that whole paragraph, while I understand Mr. Webb's writing, there is some, we as the commission would further review that based on current zoning and how that would work out. So I can't recommend or deny it. There's just a lot of questions that we have, and this was expressly discussed in correspondence amongst our group over the difference between Old Town years ago and then how it would fall in currently under zoning, as well as the effects of not annexing the 25 acres and what the petitioner would be allowed to develop. So with all that being said, I think that paragraph would certainly be up for discussion. I cannot at all say whether it would we would change anything or not without the full commission's review of this language.
Right. I correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm talking to anybody. I almost see that as making the assumption that that top lot, which I guess is it's kind of behind the Catholic Church, if that's a 13 lot parcel currently, if that is the lot that we're talking about, I think it is, listening to Mr. Webb. You know, is that 13 lots on its own, or does it require the other piece in order to yield a net of 13? I don't know.
Okay, the site plan that was prepared and shown to the Planning Commission in 2016. On that site plan, there were 13 lots within that property, the incorporated Lippy property.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I guess
there are 8 lots in the Lippy property, and there are 19 lots in the Old Town property.
So 19 lots is where you see that kind of coming out, the road coming out across from Maple Grove, without counting them. I'm assuming that's where the 19 is.
Yeah, where the pump station is.
Okay. And then the middle, the one with the blue dot, that would be the current unincorporated area, which I think was like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah, it would be 8 if it comes into the county on your water, into the town, and probably only 7 with the county. And of course, we understand that there's all sorts of site plan issues down the road if we take that path. But the point of this was just to give some more information in the annexation plan. I mean, obviously, this isn't the adoption, but this is the annexation plan is a document. It's going to be circulated to a lot of agencies and to the county, and this simply presents a better picture because the plan, as it's stated, doesn't mention the third piece, and it doesn't mention that the annex property is only providing 8 new lots into the town, and
Gotcha.
we felt that was important.
So my next question would be for Mr. McCarron. Does wording it in the manner as recommended by the Lippy Group bind the town in any way, as that then being part of the stated plan to say, well, we're recognizing that it is this many lots regardless of how things get planned out, versus if we made no changes or say partial changes, does that prohibit us from possibly moving forward as one parcel if that's what makes sense for the town?
No, it does not bind the town in the manner that you've described, Mr. Mayor. Sometimes I'll see, just by way of suggestion, if statements of the sort recommended in an annexation plan, but it's specifically attributed to the applicant, so that it's clear that this is the applicant's contribution to the annexation plan, and that oftentimes is done to put their side of it, give clear indication it is their recommendation. It's not necessarily adopted per se by the town, but it's there for the commenting agencies to review.
Exactly.
Again, I'm not trying to speak for planning and zoning or for our group. If it was stated that way, that this is the petitioner's contribution or the additional explanation, will the Lippy Group be okay with it being stated that way? Is that information for people doing the review?
Yeah, just like adding what we presented as an addendum to the annexation plan, that would be fine. I mean, the point is to get additional information out to those who read this down the road, so they simply get a more complete understanding of what the petitioner intends to do, in the future, but including, making a condition to the annexation that all 3 parcels have to be presented together, so they can't do a switcheroo on you later.
Right. Yeah, and that's something. Hopefully, you don't take anything I'm saying as question too much. We don't do a ton of these anymore. And I don't know. I know Mr. Hill's involved and Mr. Hacker involved the last one, maybe 20 years or something, or 18 years since we've really been doing this. So I'm trying to proceed as fairly as possible and get people's opinions out there without unknowingly, stepping into a minefield. Not that you're trying to create one, but just want to make sure that I'm allowing you to present your information and just understanding what it means for the town.
Right. It's not binding on you at all.
Okay.
Right, Tom?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just would note that the third parcel that Mr. Webb is speaking of, for whatever reason, has not been a great piece of substance in our conversations. We in the Planning and Zoning Commission have focused purely on the Lippy property itself and the previous property known as Old Town. So that third parcel that Mr. Webb speaks of hasn't been a great discussion. Certainly, I know we'll deal with that whatever happens, but I just wanted to bring that point out.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point. If we present this, though, as an addendum, and these are their comments, does anybody on the council, staff, or Alex Periconi, do you have any issues with allowing them, we'll include it in the plan and just present it as their addendum and their additional information?
Mr. Mayor, I would just say that we, the Planning and Zoning Commission, we believe that's your and the council's decision to make. That we will, we gave our recommendation, and I'll be glad to speak to that. But I'm not going. I don't think it's proper for the Planning and Zoning Commission to step in at this level. That's purely in your and the council's purview.
Understood. I was asking you not to give an official recommendation of the Planning and Zoning, but just as someone that spent some time. If you believe that something's unfairly stated, please feel free to speak up as an individual person, not speaking for your group, as you're as familiar with this as anybody that's on the call. But I hear what you're saying. So within the council or staff, does anybody have an issue with at least number 2 being included as their addendum within our plan? I don't take an official vote, but just we kind of chop this up. We'll go through them one by one and then vote at the end.
I support it as an addendum.
Okay. Jen, Melinda, you guys all right with it being an addendum? All right, I'll move on to adjoining property. Mr. Webb, would you like to?
Yep. Yeah, this is, we just wanted to make it clearer. It wasn't really clear in the annexation plan that the Lippy property is currently part of an enclave. As you are aware, if an annexation is brought to you and it creates an enclave, you're by law, you can't do it. It's against public policy. It's an undesirable result. So we think it is something that anyone looking at this should understand, that annexing the Lippy property into the town will substantially reduce an existing enclave. You're improving a bad situation. And that's all. That's the only intent there.
I guess the question would be the same. Yes, a little bit less to discuss on this one. Does anybody have an issue with including this as their addendum and the petitioner's comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Sorry, I'm toggling back and forth here electronically. Development demands on public facilities infrastructure. Number 3, water supply.
Right. We just wanted to make it clear that, back when the town negotiated for the pump station to go on the Old Town property, 40 allocations for water and sewer were granted to the Old Town plat. And as we indicated, the combined properties were not coming in with more than 40 lots. So the allocations for 40 new lots are coming into being developed are already in the town plan. They're already reserved for Old Town. And again, this would be submitted as an amendment to the Old Town plat by adding these 2 parcels and making the resulting 40 lots larger and more desirable.
Okay.
Could I comment on that, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely, yes.
I think this has given us heartburn for many, many years. This goes back to an agreement way back in 1991, of course, as Mr. Webb had stated. I don't know, we use the word allocation pretty loosely. When you look at the actual agreement that was made between the owners at that time, Mr. Mednick and Mrs. Dokas, it talks about water replacement fees and not particularly allocations for water. So that has given us, that's given staff and the petitioner heartburn for many, many years. So I, unless this is clearer for me, I can't go along with that, to tell you, to be very honest with you.
Mr. Miller, do you have a list of the allocations? Is there a list that's kept in the town of where the water is allocated to?
We do not, not to my knowledge, that we have a list that certain areas get allocated for certain number of gallons of water per day.
And is Old Town on that list?
I believe Old Town is mentioned in the comprehensive plan. That is correct. But the way I read this, it talks about allocations specifically in exchange for a piece of property. That's not the way I actually read the agreement that was made by the owners at that time in 1991 with the town of Manchester. And also the other question I have, does that agreement carry through? And this is a question for our attorney. Does that agreement carry through with the new property owners?
But the gallonage is already attributed to Old Town. Is that equivalent to an allocation that you set that water aside for Old Town?
I think this zeroes into the number of lots. The number of lots, like we have water allocated for 40 lots for the Old Town development. We do not have that. It does not specifically, like, we don't have a list of people waiting in line who we going to give water and sewer services to.
So explain to me what is allocated to Old Town? What does that look like on your books?
I'd have to look back in the comp plan, Brad. I don't have that in front of me, so I'd have to look back. Yes, I believe it is in our water sewer service area, of course, but I don't think it's specifically spelled out just Old Town or Lippy property. It could be, but I'd have to look back in the comp plan for that.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think my client they checked on this from time to time, and they were under the impression that Old Town is on the books as being included in having in the gallons of water that the city has available to it that's already set aside. But we can work later on that specific language.
In the grand scheme of things for that specific area, yes, it's a water sewer service area, of course, in the grand scheme of things, but that would possibly take other properties into consideration too.
Okay.
I would have to, at this point, I've read it and I've tried to digest it the best I can. Obviously, I'm not an expert on this. I take the information that Steve Miller gives. I certainly listen to planning and zoning. And with some of the things I've heard tonight, I feel like I need some more research. I'm not real comfortable with some of the answers, but again, that's just me. Maybe I just need to do a little further research, but just listening to everyone else that I feel is much more well-versed than I am, I would like to get a little more information.
So to that point, Mr. McCarron, the process from here, and Councilwoman Smith, we're not voting on tonight on moving forward versus not moving forward. I do believe we need to vote on a plan and some timing around that. So I want to make sure I'm saying that the right way. So this plan is something that we send in. I don't know that we have to have all the answers to send a plan in, but we do need to send a plan in for review.
Correct. The purpose really of the plan, it's probably not maybe stated correctly, is it's a comment piece. It's a document that from one place, the reviewing agencies can see what this is all about and make comment. That's really all that the annexation plan is. Obvious, I mean, one, just practical suggestion I might make is to, once again, along the same lines, give indication here by way of addendum or whatever that the developer contends that there's an agreement in place to provide allocations already to Old Town, and then I would probably put in there to make sure it's clear that assertion is either disputed by the town or perhaps is under review. I have not reviewed the 91 agreement. I think I've seen the deed tonight from, was it 75, I think. And from what I've read so far, I tend to agree. There's talking about waiver of fees, but I don't see necessarily a reserve for allocation. But there could be other documents that I haven't reviewed, so I really can't pass on that.
I think that makes some sense is that if we allow the petitioner to make their comments, we state clearly that these are their comments, but maybe we clarify our part of the plan, if I'm understanding what you're saying, Mr. McCarron, correctly, to say that the 91 agreement and any additional associated agreements are under review with the town. The town understands that or believes that this is within the water sewer service area, but does not have a clear picture and does not have the understanding that there are a specified number of gallons allocated. And then we'll get into the agreements, and the agreements are what they are. That obviously doesn't go in there, but does that sound correct to you? And is that something that we can then make that amendment to this draft plan and allow them to make their comments in there as well?
Yes.
Steve Miller, would that give you some comfort if again we clearly state these are their comments, and then we amend our plan as Mr. McCarron suggested?
We can do that, Mayor. Yes. Yes.
The members of the council, are you guys okay from a consensus standpoint, or would you like something stated differently there?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I will weigh in on this section for planning and zoning. I'm opposed to the word allocation. We have several of these developments in the process in planning and zoning. And if we start, it is my feeling, and Mr. McCarron can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, that if we start using this term, it may be again mistaken as that a individual property, a home, whatever we want to use, is being guaranteed a certain gallonage of water that is required. I just think that if we can word it another way, it would be better as we walk down this path several other times in the next couple months.
Understood. So the way that I understand this, and staff from Mr. McCarron, please weigh in. Like we can ask the petitioner to amend their language. We can refuse to include their language or their comments, or we can put our understanding and somehow clarify this from our perspective, as Mr. McCarron suggested, saying we're the specifics of the 91 agreement are under review, but we don't believe at this time, and I'll let Tom kind of word that, from a legal perspective, we don't believe at this time that it is an allocation, but we do concede that it's in the water sewer service area. I don't know if I'm saying that the right way, but I think that would address your points. So I'd like to allow them to include their comments if possible, right? They're valid for review, and their opinion is valid. But at the same time, I hear you, and certainly Steve Miller's comments too. We can't let a word that slide by that has a different meaning if that's not our understanding. Anybody else have any thoughts there?
Well, that's what I was trying to reach with Steve and find out, what you have. You have water reserves for the town. Is that right, Steve?
Brad, you're putting me on the spot here. Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. We do.
And some of those reserves are reserved for specific properties.
I don't think they're reserved for specific properties per name,
Okay, but when you create that reserve, did someone have Old Town in mind as well as other properties
As
Do
well
we
as
need-
other properties, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so there is a reservation of gallonage for Old Town and other properties.
And other properties, correct.
Okay.
I don't think this is a
Yeah.
fair thing to put Steve on the
Yeah,
spot for. I think this is not appropriate.
The agreements-
I wasn't trying to.
Yeah, no, I know. But
Right.
the agreements say what they say, and they'll be straightened out later. I think suffice it to say that the town could say, you know, as the mayor suggested, it's under review. The town does not have to ascribe to the notion there's any reserve for deal at this time. The developer can say that they believe there is. And, you know, I think that's really the only position we at this point agree not to agree. This is the best we can do today. But that's fine for the present purposes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. McCarron. I mean, we can't really hash it out right now. I don't know that we have all the information and you know, so that Libby Group knows. I mean, we are doing our best to understand your position and to include your comments. But I think that it does make sense, to my opinion, is to move forward as suggested by Mr. McCarron. Are you guys okay if we move forward that way, and then we'll figure it. It'll be figured out how it gets figured out.
Okay.
Everybody okay to move on? Schedule and financing of municipal services. Number 7, tax revenue control of the development plan.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple. The annexation plan as drafted lists a number of areas where there may be a cost to the town when the development comes online. And we just wanted to add that, yes, that may be true. Of course it's true, but there's also going to be revenue, and with the tax revenue from 40 improved lots. And that simply should have been mentioned in there. But that's all it is. No more comments. I believe Marty Hackett would like to address some other areas of the annexation plan.
Marty had to drop off, and the feeling was that you had covered the main issues. And I guess what I would just say in place of Marty is that a review of the minutes of planning commission meetings in 2016, I think, show a much different position on the part of the planning commission than what has come out in their recommendations, and we'll work through that.
Actually, we lost the mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think we lost the mayor. I don't see him.
Vice President Pacelli.
Yes, Steve.
Apparently, the mayor's offline here for some reason.
Okay. I see that Marty Hackett is online. Does he have anything to say in addition to what Mr. Hill said?
No, sir. But thank you.
Ryan is back online now. At least he's been accepted in.
Well, give him just another 30 seconds or so. There he is.
I'm sorry, guys. I dropped out there. I can sit here the whole time. I'm trying for my phone now.
Brian, I'm not sure if you're cutting out. Can you repeat what you just said? I didn't hear a thing. I see you, but I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is there? I don't see any. Well, I see some folks. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Oh, I cannot wait to get back in the room. So I'm sorry for dropping off there. I may try to log back in on my computer. I don't know if it's going to work or not. So I'm over like this the cell signal now. My wireless or internet or whatever is going to be working. So just for my own edification here, I did hear Mr. Webb was discussing number 7, which is not in our original plan. Mr. McCarron, did you have any comments on that number 7?
I did not know.
Anybody, staff or council, have any issues with adding number 7 as an addendum as the petitioner's comments?
I have none, Mayor. I have none.
Okay. So for purposes of wrapping this piece up, I had us as the first comment, adding it as is, as the petitioner's comments as an addendum. Number 4, adding it as is, as the petitioner's comments. Development demands on public facilities and infrastructure. Number 3, adding as an addendum is their comments, but also adding or updating our comments to include what Mr. McCarron had said about, and again, I'll let him word this. Maybe you can state it for the record one more time. Everybody can agree before we vote. But essentially, that we agree this in the water sewer service area, but we don't agree on the word allocation or the specific gallons are allocated for specific properties. And then schedule and financing municipal services, number 7, adding it as is as the petitioner's comments. Did I capture that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not able to see everybody at once anymore, but did anybody from the council, and you have to speak up because I can no longer see everybody. I can only see like 4 people on my phone. Anybody from the council have any additional comments or anybody on staff before we vote on that as a plan? I believe that plan then would include the 60-day comment period with the public hearing being scheduled at the regularly scheduled October council meeting.
If I may say one thing.
Sure.
This 1991 agreement, and obviously I'm not familiar with that. Is there anything incumbent upon us or anyone to review this agreement as well as at least a cursory review of the 2016 Planning Commission meeting minutes just to do our due diligence?
Tom, I think the obvious answer is yes, but I think it's probably going to require Tom McCarron working with Tom's town staff to gather those documents and then understand where they are. Is that a correct assumption, Tom?
Agreed.
Does that answer your question, Vince?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns before we vote on the plan and timing of the public hearing? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the amended plan as stated with petitioner comments and the town amendment / clarification to the water section and the timing of the public hearing to be set in October 2020 at the Manchester Town Council meeting?
I will make a motion that we approve the amended plan with the petitioner's comments, along with the town clarification with water and the timing of public hearings and so on and so forth. I know that's a little vague there, but you lost me. Wrong.
Yeah, I was trying to follow my notes. Motion, do we have a second?
All right, I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'm not able to see you all at once, so say aye, raise your hand for the record. Motion carries, I believe. I'll trust somebody that's able to see it. Mr. McCarron, is there anything else that we have to do or should do this evening as far as the Lippy annexation petition?
No, I think you're all set for tonight.
Okay. All right, then that's where we are. Thank you, everyone that is with that group, and Alex for joining tonight. So we'll push this over to the attorney and to town staff to take the next steps.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Sure, our pleasure. Kelly, did anything come in, questions from the community tonight? I know I've asked like 3 or 4 times tonight.
I just checked. There's no emails, and I have not gotten one phone call.
Okay. All right, we'll move to committee reports. Councilwoman Smith.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a gentleman here for comments and questions from the community. Mr. Collender, Matt Collender.
I apologize. I lost track of you, Mr. Collender. Let's before we go to committee reports, then, Mr. Collender, if you don't mind, obviously we know your name. Maybe state your resident or at least street, for the record, and the floor is yours.
Sure. My name is Matt Collender. I'm the Edward Jones guy in Hampstead, and my kids go to local schools. My son goes to Manchester Valley. I live on Wellesley Court. I've been there for 16 years, wife and 3 kids. So I love this community. And yeah, you want me to just kind of go into what we're doing?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm here tonight, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Steve, for your time. We'll just literally take just a couple of minutes. What I wanted to show you is a little bit of what we did. I'm on the Manchester Valley Advisory Committee, and I understand that the mayor at one point was on that committee, and his son was the treasurer. And Steve has been to some meetings, and what we're a committee that's like local businesses meeting with the school, and we try to find ways to improve school. And so we identified that a electronic school sign was a worthy project to go after. Bridge the yeah, that phone's ringing. Hold on a second. All right, good. So to bridge the school and the community. And so we raised the money. I put that big thermometer up there for a while. I'm very proud that it didn't blow over. It was tied in good, so that was great. We raised the money thanks to some generous donations, local donations. And there was an article written in the newspaper in the Carroll County Times. I refer you to that. So we have the money for a really fantastic sign for the school. And if I could, I'm just going to share my screen. Chris Lenochin from Carroll County, the Department of Public Works, he's the Chief Bureau of Engineering, will maybe take a look at, oh, wait a minute, host disabled to participant screen sharing. Would the host allow me to share just 2 screens?
I think she's trying. This is one of these things.
It's all new.
Yeah.
No, I can do it now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's see if everybody, can you see this corner or this plot kind of?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the corner from bird's eye view of Route 30 and Maple Grove Road. Chris, do you want to just talk to some of the, we parked a sample sign there for a couple weekends, and the original site was kind of up near the wall, but we noticed that the corner is really an ideal site because it captures everybody that's coming south to the school, from the south to the school, and from the north. So we tried to take a look at putting the sign on the location on that corner. And Chris, if you could speak to some of the issues that are going on at that spot.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. So the area that is outlined with those numbers is an area that was dedicated to the State Highway Administration when those improvements were completed. So that area is not able to have anything placed within it since it's owned by the State Highway Administration. They were nice enough to meet us in the field. However, you cannot place a sign in that area. Just outside that area, the grade drops off, and there are several water resource easements, water resource easement, a forest conservation easement. So beyond that, you cannot place a sign. And parallel to Maple Grove Road is our stormwater management area, our wide shoulder technique for Maple Grove Road improvement. So the sign could not be placed in that area either. So when I was talking with the group initially, it's a very challenging site with the right-of-way, the water resource areas, and the water conservation areas.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And so we had a meeting. We brought Dick Weaver, Marcia from the school board, the principal was there. I called Haven Shoemaker. We tried to get State Highway to let us do it there, and it's just impossible. We couldn't do it. So we looked at a spot. There is a spot that it's like the closest you can get without dealing with that easement. And it's just too far from Route 30. It would serve everybody that's turning into the school. So it would serve the students, but it wouldn't really serve the community. So I talked with Steve a little bit about taking a look at just this location, just inside the line of the town of Manchester property for the pump house. And that's the second look. Is that screen showing for everybody? Okay, great. So there was Steve was great and shared some information back and forth with the team about what the requirements are for signage as far as height and where things need to be. So we did a balloon test, and this is an interesting northbound photo. I don't know if you've ever played like Where's Waldo, but see if you can pick up Guy Gary somewhere in that photo. He's down there. So anyway, here's the ask. We've really tried to get this sign into that corner, but it doesn't work. You can still see the sign from the corner at this spot. We're working, this is right around the height of the sign. The land drops off considerably right there. So the total height is like 21. I think it's still under whatever the ordinance is. We will be within the ordinance. But the ask is to say, hey, we recognize that this is a real benefit to the school. We're going to be able to put the plays that are going on, sporting events that'll help the boosters that are there to get more money for the school. The ask is if the town council and the mayor would allow us to move forward with looking at putting the sign on that location. If that's the case, then we can get the bidding process done with the school board, which will take a few months. And the committee would really like to have this sign in place next year for when the kids are in school. So that's assuming the kids are in school. So that's really the story. Steve, do you have anything to add to this? Put you on the spot.
I do not. I've had conversations, Matt and I have had conversations back and forth. I know our zoning administrator, Ms. Wilder, has weighed in on this too. I know there are some items that we have to work out, such as electric, landscaping. zoning requirements, of course, liability insurance. But I think, Matt, you're looking for a nod from the council to possibly move forward a little bit farther on this site, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity. So if it's, okay with the council and the town, yeah, if I can just continue to move forward with looking at this as a possible location, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. How large is like that sign? I know it's raised up from the ground considerably due to the grade. The perimeter of the sign or the area of the sign, how large is that?
Sure. It is 4 feet. Well, I'll give you the total size. Hold on one second. Let's see. Hold on a second. Bear with me.
If it's just an estimate, it's fine. But you think from that, I know it's not the best ideal location for you, not being a little closer to Maple Grove, but it's large enough to where you can see that from Maple Grove.
Oh, yeah. You can see Maple Grove, and here's the kind of the height, and the active area is 4 feet 2 by 7 feet 6.
Okay.
So you can definitely see the sign very well. You just as you can, there's already kind of precedence going the other way. The dentist sign, you can see that from the spot that we want to put the sign. So, and the ability to have the lettering gives us greater distance with the size of the screen. The clarity of this screen is very incredible too. This is a $50,000 sign.
Wow.
So it's a good sign.
It's a nice looking sign. I know it's a rendering, but it's a nice looking sign.
Yeah, you have the logo up top, and of course, so that's kind of where we're at.
Steve, from a town perspective, I know Michelle's not here, but you're comfortable giving the nod to keep moving forward with a, so let's say a preliminary. Hey, we think we have some logistics to figure out, the things that you included, but we feel pretty good if those logistics can be figured out about moving forward that site.
I believe so. I believe that the first step is to make sure it meets all the planning and zoning requirements. That's the first step, and then things would fall in line. How are we going to work? As I mentioned, the other items that I mentioned, liability, things like that. So
yeah, electric, landscaping,
Right. We already did some preliminary work from our own perspective from Public Works because of the pump station being relatively close there. We do have a couple hurdles that we have to overcome. I think I put that in my brief today. The force main that comes out of the station, and also the electric service that goes into the existing Lippy pump house right there.
Okay. Council members that are on the call, you guys okay with moving forward with that plan?
I do have a question, and it's very difficult. I was trying to blow it up because I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into the map and blow it up. Has the committee ruled out any other, or are there any other options along 30 north of the town property? Because from that map, it was hard to tell where the property line was in relationship to the corner of the school lot. Was there any other options for maybe further up, like closer to town, further north? I know it's more ideal to have it at a stoplight type thing, but there's often times where traffic is stopped along there.
Yeah. We did consider it. Actually, the original plans had it further north, but what we noticed when we put the first sample sign with the truck there to let everybody know about the expo and everything, it was very clear that people that are coming from the south that turn into Maple Grove, they wouldn't see it if it was all the way up on the wall portion. there's also a lot of trees that are growing up in front of everything. So that was the committee's kind of decision to try to pull it as close south as possible so that we can get people coming from the north will see it, certainly. People coming from the south will see it that are going to the school. And then everybody that's stopped in traffic is going to see it, and we can promote everything. And it was just the best way to get the most amount of connection between the community and the school. That was the thought.
While I'm not against moving forward, there are a lot of logistics. I do think that we need to look at, and a lot before I can say yes, absolutely, or no, definitely not. But just something for the committee to maybe keep in mind is there's other high schools in the county where the sign that is available is not very well seen by the public. FSK, for example, that's right along Bark Hill Road, and the only way you see it is if you're driving in. So I think, having been to a couple of the advisory meetings and listening to some of the conversation, I know there was talk about possibly renting out advertisements and stuff on the sign and that kind of thing. So I think that's something that we're going to have to look at, if it's okay, if it's not okay. Is the purpose to get more people to come to the games and that kind of thing, or just, the thought process behind it?
Sure. Yeah. And there was conversation around fundraising before we hit our goal on how we could we partner with businesses that would have certain levels if we said that they'd have some time on the sign. We've reached our goal at this point. So I don't think there's any plan that we'll cross every bridge, but yeah, the idea was to raise money for the sign, but we believe we have the sign funding. So, and we comply with we're working with the school to say what's appropriate, what is not appropriate, so.
Okay. Melinda or Vince, you guys have any comments from Mr. Collender?
I do not.
I don't. I agree. We'll just, let's take a look and, see where we can go and get everything figured out and go from there.
So it sounds like, okay, so I got to scroll around. I'm on my phone like Jen is now. It sounds like, yeah, hey, we're giving you a nod. Let's go forward. Please work with planning and zoning and with staff to meet all the requirements. And if something becomes, well, it's not like an all work, it's just a blank check. Something becomes a hiccup as we're continuing to work through these things, then it's a hiccup and we'll reevaluate. I did look at the places you had it. I kind of agree this might be the best spot because those trees are going to become a problem, and you certainly can't really see it from Maple Grove when it's up on that hill. Although the hill's a nice spot, it's just not visible from the north. So. Okay, I think that's that. Do you have anything else for us? Okay. All right, moving to reports. Councilwoman Smith.
No, I don't have anything. We didn't have any meetings due to COVID, so hopefully next month.
Hopefully next month for everything.
I know. I agree. This is difficult.
Councilwoman Miller.
The only thing that I have as an update is I was able to attend MML virtually, and it was very convenient, very informative. It was nice to not have to deal with all the crowds. We did qualify for Banner City. We will be getting that certification or plaque piece in the near future. So that's it.
Okay, I agree with you. It was convenient and it was easy. Like, you kind of squeeze it into the rest of your day. I did miss some of the social aspects of it. I like seeing people, shaking hands and talking, but it definitely was convenient. And I do like that. I did not get to do all the open meetings ones. I know Steve did some of those. Those may be important for those of us that registered to go back and watch, just for things like this, to make sure, the world's changed a little bit, to make sure we're up to speed. Councilman Pacelli?
Nothing to report at this time.
All right. Just checking. I don't have a full view of everybody. Councilwoman Howe, she was not able to join. I don't see her on there. Yeah. And Councilwoman Miller, thank you. That's definitely some work. Everybody got to pass on the school piece this year because obviously school shut down before we could do the If I Were Mayor contest. So
Sure thing.
all right, that's all I have. Anybody else have anything for this group? Hearing none. Council meeting on Tuesday, August 11th, 7:30. Let's, if we can, let's try to do this one in person. Try to avoid some of these hiccups. I took a look at the picture at the staff, Steve and the staff had spaced it out. I think that's a doable situation for the time being. It'd be nice to get back in there. Obviously, we're kind of at the mercy of how things go. But thanks for everybody. Kelly, thank you for hosting again, and Mr. McCarron for joining. Apologies for me dropping off here. It's just as many times we do this, it just never seems to get over the couple of hurdles. But, all right. Well, there's nothing else. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. See you guys. Talk to you soon.
Good night.